In the next several slides, we will look at reflections. We'll start by looking at what basically makes up a reflection, what the definition of a reflection is, what is and is not a reflection. Then we'll go through the rubric and look at all the different criteria for scoring a reflection, and then I'll give you some examples of some answers that might show up in a reflection and how they would be scored. Finally, I'll conclude with just a little bit of information about submitting your reflections to TaskStream. I'd like to begin by just talking about exactly what a reflection is, so you will understand what it is we're expecting. First, a reflection occurs after you've observed an event or action in the school or in some school-related activity. This action, this event, this incident should involve you in the course of your internship, or it should involve a school administrator. To help you as you write your reflection, just follow the rubric and look at what the different categories are. Make sure you include a description of the action or the event. The better the description, the better your score on the rubric. Be sure to include your feelings or beliefs about the effectiveness of what occurred. Try to relate the event to theories or concepts or lessons or even experiences you've had in the past, or analyze the event, break it down into its parts and talk about how those relate to the event. Be sure to include an evaluation, either positive or negative, of what you thought about the event. You need to make a judgment statement about it. And finally, include future plans that you plan to take or that could have been taken as alternative plans for this action or event. You need to know exactly what is not a reflection. For one thing, do not reflect on an artifact. Artifacts and reflections are two separate things. However, in the process of creating an artifact, you may have the opportunity to reflect on some of the steps. If you are part of a team that is creating a new vision or mission for the school, you may be able to reflect on perhaps the group dynamics and how the principal handled those people in the group. Do not reflect on your role as a teacher. The reflections have to deal with your internship as an administrator, not with the activities you engage in as a teacher or as a coach. Whether it's in the classroom or the break room, or maybe even professional development you receive as a teacher, those are not objects for reflections. So make sure that what you reflect upon has to do with your future as a school leader. Here you see the rubric for the reflection. Now I've included this rubric in your intern log as one of the tabs that you can look to for resources. This is also located on the Blackboard course site, and it's available on TaskStream. Whenever you go in to submit something, there's an option to pull up the rubric to look at while you are uploading your assignment. First, let's talk about this first criteria, the description of the action or the incident. And first we'll look at an example of a diary-like description which does not meet the standard. Here we have an example of just some basic information, and if that's as far as you're going with the description of the event, then that would not meet the standard. In this next example, we see a slightly more detailed account of the same event. In this next example, you can tell that the details of the event are becoming much more detailed than before. In this final example of the description of the event, it becomes almost like a story. You're really drawing the reader in so that they feel like they were actually there with you during the event. Now, it doesn't mean that the entire reflection needs to be like this, but when you're describing it, you need to describe it as fully as possible. The next criteria speaks to the feelings or beliefs that you need to express about the event. Notice that there's really only two levels to look at. The first one, of course, is no evidence, and the second one expresses feelings / beliefs about the effectiveness. And that is the same whether it's 1.0, 2.0, or 3.0 in the score. The only difference between those three is how well you express your feelings or beliefs. And I'm going to give you just a couple of examples of one that's not that great and another one that really shows the feelings and beliefs. So the first example is this one. I had a great time talking to him. I left the meeting feeling like I definitely knew more than I did going in. Well, that does express some feelings, but it's not very effective and would probably only get a score of 1. Here's a better example of an expression of the feelings that you had after an event. After reading this, you can really feel the confidence in the person. You can feel that they feel, you just know they feel better from the meeting that they had. And it's this rich, this very descriptive writing that will improve your score and make your reflection that much better. This next section of the reflection deals with an analysis of the event or a relation of the event to theories, concepts, or lessons you might have learned in class, or to past experiences you've had. Once again, notice that for the first two levels of scoring, for 0 and 1, it's just no evidence. And for the second two, they're both the same. What makes them the difference between a 2 and a 3 is how well you describe the analysis or how well you relate it to previous lessons or concepts. Here's an example of probably a 2 in the scoring. It does relate it to previous lessons, but it doesn't really tell you that much about it. So this description here, or this relation, would need to be fleshed out a bit more to have a higher score. In this next example, you see a much better relation to previous lessons. The writer here actually tells you what the lessons were about and told you, related it to the specific event, in this case the stories that Dr. Hamilton told. So this would probably be scored at a higher level at a 3. Another option for this criteria is to provide an analysis of the event where you break it down into parts. So for an example of an analysis, we have this one here where the student has taken the information from the meeting and identified 2 different themes that were apparent from the discussion with Dr. Hamilton. Something along these lines would definitely be scored as a 3. The next criteria is to include a positive or negative evaluation of the event. Once again, we see that for 0 and 1, they have the same criteria: measurement of no evidence, and 2 and 3 have the same measurement, but obviously, once again, a more in-depth description will yield a higher score. Here's an example of a statement, an evaluation that would be a 2 at best and may even get a 1, even though I guess you could say it has some evidence of a positive or negative evaluation by saying it's an excellent use of my time. But this is about as poor of an evaluation as one could be without actually not having one at all. In this example, we see a much more detailed and thorough description of the positive evaluation of the event. Not only does the student here tell you how beneficial it was, but they also speak to why it was so beneficial. This would definitely have been scored as a 3. The final criteria for the reflection rubric is to describe what future plans of action you may take as a result of being witness to this action or event. Notice that the scoring for this level of criteria is slightly different from the others, in that the only score you could make is either a 0 or a 3. So you need to give a good description of the future plans of action. Here's an example of a description of future plans that would not merit a score of 3. As opposed to the last example, here's an example that gives a detailed account of what the student plans to do in the future. This would definitely be scored as a 3. Now that I've shown you some examples of what you can write into your reflections, and I want to make sure you understand that the examples I gave were not what would constitute a complete reflection. Each of those examples would need to be elaborated further, and they would need to be a little bit more in depth than what I wrote. That doesn't mean that reflections need to be lengthy. I've seen good reflections take up only a page and a half or so, and I've seen bad reflections take up 3 pages. What's important is that you look at the rubric and follow the guidelines for that. One of the important things to do for your reflections is to try to do it as soon as possible after the event. If you can do it at school right after it happens, that's great. If not, that evening when you get home. Don't try to reflect on something that happened a month ago or 2 weeks ago. You're just going to find that it's just too difficult to remember everything about that to make it worthwhile. The next thing you need to do is, when you write up your reflection, go ahead and use the rubric for your headings in your paper, in your reflection, and use it as a guide to make sure that you're covering everything. You could use these parts of the rubric as headings in your paper. Finally, I'd like to talk just about a couple more things about these reflections and submitting them to TaskStream. First, make sure you begin every reflection with a short paragraph stating which standard is addressed by this reflection and why that standard is represented. This does not need to be more than just 2 or 3 sentences relating the reflection to one of either the ISLIC or TIL standards. The second thing I wanted to talk about was how often reflections need to be submitted. You do not need to wait until the end of the entire program to submit reflections. In fact, I want you to be submitting them up at regular intervals. For the pre-K-12 certification students who are finishing their program in 1 year, I expect you to upload at least 2 reflections each month so that we can keep on top of this and you won't get behind and I won't have just an unbelievable amount of reflections to try to grade before your program's over. For the MS and EDS students who are taking 2 years to complete their program, you would need to upload at least 1 reflection each month in order to stay on top of everything. Now, I do understand that there may be some months when things may get hectic at school or at home, and you may not get 2 reflections up if you are a pre-K-12 student, or you may not even get 1 reflection up. Please stay in communication with me. Let me know that you will get back on top of this and you will have things taken care of.